which has of course weakened the Confederation here in Norfolk. Perhaps to the betterment of ourselves, but certainly not to the betterment of their selves. Yes. When I was traveling during the story I told you, when I travel now, I usually know where I'm going before I get there. I have a staff, and that staff will lay out where we're going and what we're planning. We try to do so now with some secrecy, because I can't travel if I don't travel with secrecy. You want a second Christmas story? Yeah. This is one I've been told more recently than the other one. I'm going to give you a second Christmas story. When the war ended, it was 1783. We finally received the final Treaty of Paris in November of 83. I said goodbye to my army. I said goodbye to what remained of them. Most of the army had already been disbanded, but what remained of it, I said goodbye to them in New York at Francis Tavern, and I made my travel home to Mount Vernon. I had told my wife that I would be home by Christmas Eve. I still had a few weeks. Should have been able to do that easily. My wife will freely tell you that one of my vices is that I travel at too great a speed. But that's not true anymore, as this story will tell you. One of my general officers and some of my aide-de-camps, particularly Colonel Humphrey, they devised a path that I would take to get me home by the quickest route possible. And we crossed across the Hudson by ferry, slipped out through White Plains, and began our journey home. I did have to go by way of Philadelphia. There was the detaining in Philadelphia because I mentioned that I wasn't serving for any salary, but the agreement was that my expenses would be paid. So I had to turn in my accounts. They didn't pay all of my expenses. But the point of all of this is that my travel was delayed because every single town, hamlet, city, village along the way felt the need to celebrate my arrival. I certainly respect the honor. One of the greatest honors that any man may hope to achieve, according to the ancients, is recognition by his neighbors and virtuous countrymen for service to his nation. So I'm certainly grateful that I had gained this honor, but all of this celebration, all it did was delay me. They would stop me, they would pull me out of my carriage, they'd put me up on some gray horse they'd found somewhere. Whatever veterans they had of their town or city or borough would march me in with fife and drum. They would make speeches to me, they'd expect responses back. I can't travel anywhere quickly anymore if people know I'm coming. And so now I usually travel without letting people know, save where we're staying. Even during the war, though, in most cases, I had arrangements for where I was staying before I arrived. I rarely slept in a tent, and when I did, that was usually for the support of the men. For instance, a little bit at Valley Ford. For a few days, I slept in a tent. But most of the time, I was in a house, as is befitting the General and Commander-in-Chief. I mentioned a moment ago expenses. Some of those expenses stem from that. A great deal of being a general and commander-in-chief of an army is entertaining foreign officers and various dignitaries. Those dinners we spoke of earlier that we expected a man's home normally, I had to provide those throughout the war as well. Thank you. We have a very, very tight schedule for, not for myself, but for my dear friend, Mr. Four up there. So I'm going to have to take that signal he gave me very, very seriously. So I'm going to step down off this dais, going to recover my hat. I'm going to make myself available somewhere over here with my back to that sun, and be available for whatever individual questions you may have and any quick sketches you may wish. God save us all, and God save the Constitution of the United States.